In this episode, you will discover how you can reconnect with your passions so you can step into your next phase of life with confidence and purpose. Welcome to the Midlife Reinvention Podcast, a podcast helping women in career and life transitions achieve clarity on their next steps so they can transform uncertainty into an energizing next chapter. I'm your host, Kavita Ahuja, and the founder of It's My Time Now Coaching. If you're wondering what's next in your career or life, you are in the right place. Through solo and guest episodes, you'll gain practical tips, tools, and inspiration to help you uncover blocks, gain confidence, and be, do, and have what you want. I rediscovered myself after the age of 50, and I know you can too. It's my time now to help you do just that. I'm so excited you're here. Let's dive in. Have you ever felt like you've lost touch with the things that once made you feel alive? What if your passions were never lost, just waiting to be rediscovered? Midlife transitions, whether in career, relationships, or personal growth, can leave you feeling stuck, wondering, what's next for me? This episode dives into how you can reconnect with your passions so you can step into the next phase of your life with confidence and purpose. In this episode, you will discover how to identify and reconnect with the passions buried inside of you, practical exercises to uncover what brings you true joy and fulfillment, and real stories from women who took action on their passions even when they felt stuck. So enjoy the episode, my friend, and don't forget to stay till the end to see how your story can be heard on this podcast for others to learn from. Hello and welcome to the Midlife Reinvention Podcast, and happy International Women's Day. This episode is extra special because on this International Women's Day in 2021, I launched this podcast. So this is our 4th year anniversary, and I'm so happy you're here sharing this milestone with me. For those of you who may be new to this podcast, welcome. And to my loyal listeners, thank you so much for being here. It means the world to me that you come in every week and that to know that at the end of the microphone, you are listening to me. My intent with this podcast is really to help you realize that you are not alone as you may be facing midlife, career, and life transitions. Women around the globe, no matter what country, what nationality, what race, religion, sexual orientation, or age, all have in common things that bind us together. And that is why it's so important to celebrate yourself and the amazing women in your life. And I'm not the one to ditch men. However, I believe that supportive men in our lives are necessary. They certainly are for me. But this isn't about putting men down. It's about lifting women up. Today, I'd like to talk about how to reconnect with your passions and why that is so important as you face these career and life transitions. But before I get into that, I am starting a segment where I am taking examples from real listeners of this podcast and how it has inspired them in different ways in their lives. Often we don't know how our work will affect others, and this is the same when I launched this podcast. This, in fact, does relate to the theme of passions. When I left my 25-year corporate career to go out and start my own business, I was scared. I frankly didn't know where to start. What I did know is that I wanted to learn from other women around the world as to how they faced their challenges during this midlife period of life. Did they feel confused but also excited like I did? Did they feel like a kid in a candy store where now it was the opportunity to finally pick the best sweets with nobody stopping them? I certainly felt that way. The best way I knew how to do that was to interview women about this, and that is exactly where this podcast was born. You see, you don't have to know exactly all the steps ahead of you. You just need to figure out the first few in front of you. And that's what I did. I learned all about how to podcast, what equipment to buy, how to structure it, how to get help for editing. I created a content calendar and then started networking with women who I could interview. Those actions alone created such excitement and anabolic or positive energy within me that it led to one thing and then the other. When I started, I'm sure my interviews were horrible, but as I gained experience, it has become like second nature to me, and I still love it. That is what I mean by following your passions. Have you ever wanted to try something, but were too scared to do so? I can give you countless examples of my clients who have said things like, I've always wanted to open up a bakery, start a retreat, sell my paintings on Etsy, write a book, do a TED talk, take up climbing, open up a restaurant, teach music, get my pilot's license. The list goes on, and these are real examples, my friend. You know what my answer to them is? Why the hell not? What is the best thing that can happen if you do those things? Or at least think about doing them and see how it feels to take the first steps towards it. But I digress. Back to the podcast. So, as I said, often when we embark on something new or follow a passion that has been buried, we think, oh man, what will people think? How will it be received? There's no better example of that than launching a podcast. My passion was interviewing people and speaking my truth. I didn't know if anyone would even tune in or relate to it. But as I continued, more and more people resonated with the messages, and my listenership has grown tremendously from when I started. But it's one thing to see the numbers of listeners on a chart, which is nice when it goes up. I'm not going to lie. But what is even more amazing is when listeners reach out to me and share how this podcast has affected their lives. That is why I'd love you to share, because I want others listening to know that they are not alone. Why did you tune in today? What are you going through that this topic or this title or intro or whatever made you listen? Can you share this with me? Was there a particular episode which you actually implemented lessons into your life? And how did that change things for you? Did you, for example, listen to episode 109 on how to find your ikigai? And how did that influence your life? If you share via an email to me at kavita@itsmytimenowcoaching.com, I will highlight you anonymously if you'd like to let you know that I hear you, I see you, I feel you, and I thank you. We are all in this together and we all learn and grow together, including me. So, the first listener I'd like to highlight is a beautiful woman from the UK who reached out to me after listening to episode 174, which was about my 85-year-old mom and the lessons I've learned from her. My beautiful listener went on to share how this particular episode struck a chord with her because it reminded her of her own mom. And our mom's stories are incredibly similar. Her mom is 87 and also faced her life's adversities with grace and integrity, just like mine. Both were raised in East Africa and started a young family there, and then had to leave in the late 60s due to political unrest and immigrate to foreign lands. In her case, it was the UK, and in my case, my mother had to move to Canada. I'm sharing this story because my listener's mother influenced her the same way my mom did. Here are her words. Hard work, resilience, and a determination to you do your best, which has been the backbone of my parents' character, saw us through these testing times. She went on to share that she believes there is no coincidence that she came upon the podcast and it struck a particular chord with her. She shared that her mom's strength has come from her faith in God and her ethic of hard work and attitude of get on with whatever life throws at you. And she goes on to say that I wanted to share this with you as our moms are the real superheroes who live amongst us and who inspire us daily to be better. This truly brought tears to my eyes, and I thank you, my dear listener, for sharing this with me. Our moms and all the great women around us are our superheroes. And as we celebrate this month of women, think about the superheroes in your life. But I also want to share one secret with you. You are a superhero too. You just need to find your superpowers. I hope that resonated with you, and please do share your story so I can continue this segment to help others. So, how do we reconnect with our passions, and why is that so important as you face these career and life transitions? When I first left my long term career, I had truly forgotten, or I really didn't even know what I was really passionate about anymore. Of course, my greatest passion to this day remains my children, and that can be the same for you. But the passion I'm referring to is your internal passion. I needed to figure that out. And the only way I could do that is by giving myself the pause and the time and space to do that. So I started taking the pause. Every morning, I would sit in silence and think about what used to make me really happy. I would journal on it and then dare to dream about it. I always love to write. And in fact, I always write out my thoughts on this podcast even before I say them, because the written word always comes easier to me than the spoken words, believe it or not. So I pursued that and asked myself, what about writing do I love? How does it make me feel? For me, writing allows me to express myself without restrictions. It takes me to faraway places, both inside and outside of myself. And my goal is to write many books, and I know they are inside of me, just waiting to come out. So, what do you really love to do? What could you do for hours on end and the day would just fly by without you even realizing it? That is when you're in flow, and that is your passion, my friend. Many people would say, well, that's great, but I can't make a living around traveling or painting or singing or writing. To which I say, really? It may not be that that passion turns into profession, but when you pursue it, even a bit, that releases this positive energy into your life where you can even consider, could this be something that I can pursue for a living? And by the way, it doesn't have to. It can remain as a passion, a side gig, or a part time thing that you go to that you love without even turning it into monetary. And that's okay too. Why would you keep it inside of you if it's waiting to come out? Think about it. So, as you begin to think about your passions and how you can potentially bring them out into the world, start by thinking about some of these exercises that I've included in the show notes, which are actually taken directly from my online course, all around finding your passions. They are yours to work through, and here are some examples of how you can get started. Some questions you can ask yourself. The first one is, if you had no limitations on time, money, beliefs, or processes, what are 5 things that you would do? What would make your heart sing or jump out of bed every morning? And for each of these 5 things that you listed, describe why you love to do those things and how these things make you feel when you're doing them. What about those activities brings you joy? The next thing is to think about is about your current work or what you're currently doing to fill your time. Which tasks do you get so involved in that you wonder where the time went by when you finished them? That's your passion. If you could design your own job, what would it be? Who would you serve and why? For example, for me, when I was thinking about what my ideal job would look like, I knew it would be something where I was not tied down to a 9 to 5 office environment. It would be a job that allowed me the flexibility of working from anywhere, and it would involve me helping women and building communities. The next thing you can do is look back at your memorabilia, old photos or letters or yearbooks of when you were a child of, let's say, 8 years old. Remind yourself of who you used to be. What sort of kid were you? What excited you? What did you want to be when you grew up? So think about what you were passionate about as a kid. For example, as a kid, I was passionate about interviewing others. I would run around with a fake microphone, pretending I was a reporter, and asking everyone in sight silly, but I have to admit, creative questions. I would always take those interviews and write articles about what I discovered. I forgot about that until recently, and guess what I'm doing now? Interviewing women for my podcast using a real microphone. Another exercise is to look at activities which energize you, or green activities, and those that deplete your energy, or red activities, and make a note of these in the next week. For example, my top 5 green activities are meditation and yoga, walking my dog, spending time in nature, coaching my clients, writing, and interviewing women for my podcast. My top red activities are paying bills, grocery shopping, cleaning the house, figuring out what to make for dinner, and looking at my finances. It's obvious that sometimes we have to include red activities in our life because they're necessary. But is there a way to reduce these activities or make them more enjoyable? How do we increase the green activities more in your life? For example, maybe you hate doing your finances or your taxes. You actually dread it. Is it more valuable for you to have someone else help you with this so you can focus on activities which increase your energy levels? Something to think about as we design our lives moving forward. So, my friend, I believe the phrase finding your passions is a bit of a fallacy because indeed, your passions were never lost. They are buried inside of you. And your job now is to go on an exciting treasure hunt to rediscover them. They are not lost. I'm here to help you do just that. So please do one thing for me today. If this resonated with you, or even if it didn't, please share. Share a story about how this podcast has helped you. Share what you may be going through as you face some transitions in your life. Share how you may be feeling as you are looking to embark on a new career, or as your kids are growing up, as you're looking to start your own business or get back to optimal health. All these things are important to share because I will share them with my audience and you will realize that you are not alone. Simply email me at kavita at itsmytimenowcoaching.com and let's do this. Let's celebrate ourselves and one another and move into this next chapter of life with passion, grace, excitement, and energy. You've got this, and I've got you. Till next time, my friend, remain passionate in everything you do.